this content is for kids.
It's not for kids.
Isn't that what I said?
No, it's not for kids. If you are 13 years or younger, this is not for you. Do I have to kill somebody in order to actually make that point across?
No, man, you don't have to kill
Wait
no
a
one.
second.
No.
When we return to our planet, the High Court may well sentence you to torture.
He likes movies, we like movies. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. I'd buy that for $1.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a new feature, or actually a new/old feature, because we started off the vlogcast doing this, and I thought I'd bring it back as just a once-a-month deal. I've been writing in my bullet journal, keeping track of games I've beaten and the movies that I have watched, and I've asked Jake to do something similar. And we would just go through them as we go down the list. And he had said he'd take cues from around the time I've been watching things to talk about it. And when we talk about Inside Movies Galore or other stuff, he'll chime in his 2 cents. But we'll also indicate what we've seen. Just a little short ideas of what the plot's about and whether we liked it or not. You know, simple stuff. But I'll start us off. On the 2nd of the month, I watched a movie from Anhedenia film called Death Toilet 4, Brown Snakes on a Plane. It is a 2021 film, and it has a very unique poster, which I'm putting up here. I'm going to try and do visual aid. That's why I'm keeping this distance so we have a center space to throw things in. It was essentially, if you have been following the Death Toilet series, and Jake's watched the Death Toilet movies up to this point, it's about this guy who's a Vietnam vet, and his brother mysteriously died in this place, and he finds out that it was a possessed toilet that killed him. So he and this priest end up getting together and exorcising this toilet. But it just won't, evil won't stay down. You gotta plunge that sucker. And so essentially the third one is they find out that the toilet's back and they have to take a flight to the Vatican in order to try and get the Pope involved. And unfortunately, the death toilet has possessed the plane. Essentially, this movie is a little bit... I can tell... if you want, you can check out my my Anhedenia project review on it, where I do like a first impressions review right after I saw it. I did get a copy of the physical, which I'll show off later on, and I'll probably do a proper review once I'm in the spirits to do a proper review. But this one, again... definitely higher production value than the rest of the movies. That's not really saying much. I mean, you've seen the rest of the movies. I would say that high production value and Death Toilet do not go together.
Production value?
But still, pretty fun movie. I like that I like the villain that he introduces called Potty Mouth, which is pictured on the cover. And from what the director said, you'll see more of him in Death Toilet 5. So a lot of cool things set up for the next sequel.
Good times.
So, what have you watched early in the month? That was on the 2nd for me.
I was not doing day by day, so I'm not even going to pretend to have that. I am going to say point blank that the first part of October I did very little side viewing. But I will go ahead and offer up one that I watched over the course of a couple of weeks. I think it took that long. Even though it's only 9 episodes, it took a minute to get through it. But I did finally watch a series that I have been wanting to watch. It's honestly one of the reasons I signed up for Amazon Prime, and it just took a while to get to it. And that is the series Invincible, which is based on the Image comic series. We have mentioned it a couple of times on the channel. I know that a couple of our Movies Galore folks, one in particular is like raving about the show. Several of us have seen it at this point, but I've also read the comics, and when I heard about the show, I was stoked. I mean, I love the comics. And the show, the first season, for the most part, is a very faithful adaptation of the comics up to a pivotal story point. Which I'm not going to necessarily say right here, because even though the first episode, kind of like we talked about in our previous video with School Live, there is a major twist that completely changes the entire series that happens before the end of the first episode. Invincible is the same way.
Yeah.
You have the main character, who calls himself Invincible, Mark Grayson, is the son of the planet's greatest protector, Omni-Man, who also, in his private life, goes by Nolan Grayson. He has a wife, Debbie, and they have a happy little family unit where the father just happens to disappear constantly for hero work. Also, you have I want to say Dick Grayson. No, it's Mark Grayson does have his high school life where he has this girl he's crushing on, Amber, and another girl who he comes to find out goes to his school, who's part of a teen hero group. She goes by Adam Eve, although Eve or Samantha are her civilian names. And that team also includes Robot and Rexplode, Duplicate. I don't know why I had trouble with that. And, etc., etc., etc. Robot is voiced by Zachary Quinto. You've got Zazie Beetz as Amber, J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man, Stephen Yeun as Mark Grayson, Sandra Oh as Debbie. Got Walton Goggins as the secretive government type Cecil Stedman. You got a pretty impressive cast, and that's just the main characters. You got a ton of the best villains ever. The Mahler twins are played by Kevin Michael Richardson. You've got Mark Hamill shows up in a small role. There's a hilarious supporting role that Seth Rogen plays. So this has a phenomenal cast. But it's just phenomenal that it's a relatively faithful comic adaptation. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go with the rest of it.
It was a very good series. Me and my wife watched it not long prior, but not this month. So, but we did enjoy it a lot. So on the 3rd, I watched Scary Movie. Starting that actually, so far, horror movies for Halloween. Well, I guess horror comedy in this case.
Starting with some quality there, huh?
So, the original Scary Movie was good.
It had a couple brilliant moments.
Yes.
And it had several decent moments.
I'd say out of the Scary Movie films, it's the best.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I just had a interest in watching it. I'd had a hard day or something, I don't know, and I wanted a comedy, and that's a fun one. My wife likes the original Scary Movie. Back when Freeberg and Seltzer and and the Wayanses were actually on good terms, which not so much these days. And there's always that concept like, well, the Wayanses went on to produce nothing but hits, and Freebird and Seltzer nothing but like crap. I would like to say that they both produced quite a bit of crap, and on their own. The Wayanses did a little bit better. Like Haunted House was not bad, but Haunted House 2 was terrible. And 50 Shades of Black was terrible. And there are a lot of failures amongst all of them.
Yeah.
I think they worked better as a team than they do separately. But a fun movie, nevertheless.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know if you want. I can keep going.
You go ahead and do a couple of them.
On the 4th, I completed a horror game with my wife called The Park, which is a horror game. It's a walking sim horror game where you're this woman and your child runs into the amusement park at the close. So you run in after it. And it turns out this amusement park has been closed for a while. And there's a lot of weird introspection, ghosts, and haunted attractions that draw your eye. The ending is a bit odd and messed up. It is a fairly decent horror game. I didn't pay a lot for it, which is good, and I would not want any of you to pay a lot for this game. But if you get it for free, or you get it for a few bucks, because it'll go on sale for like $5 or less sometimes, grab it for that. It's good. It's worth one playthrough. And $5, that's like a rental for a movie, and I think that's worthwhile. So yeah, it's about a good movie rental type thing. It's a fun enough walkthrough. Or watch a playthrough. Though there is something to be said about controlling it yourself. It kind of puts you in that driver's seat. So let's see. Well, I'll hit another one here. Alice on 10/5. I believe that was for Inside Movies Galore.
Said the White Rabbit.
Yes. And that's one that we both watched for that. And that was, it's essentially a Czech film, I believe. Back when they were Czechoslovakia.
Jan Sunmaker or some such thing.
And it is a fairly good rendition of Alice in Wonderland. A very creepy rendition.
Yes.
I thought that it was a very solid film. Great one for Halloween time. And a good one just overall. We kind of carried it over from when we originally had the theme Accidentally Scary.
Right.
I think it just got carried over, which was fine by me because it is perfect for the season.
Yeah.
What did you think of the film?
Well, and tune in, by the way, to our Movies Galore discussion to get a more in-depth look at it, as well as other people's opinions on it. But I do like the movie. I think it is creepy as hell, but it's fascinating. Like, it is so different from anything else that you'll likely see. It's definitely different among the pantheon of Alice in Wonderland adaptations.
Yes, indeed.
And it's just interesting. And of course, it gave us that Said the White Rabbit running gag that we've probably run into the ground, but whatever.
Well, throw us out one.
Well, I guess I'll probably run out of them faster, but I'll go ahead and kick off with a really fun movie that we watched. My family and I actually watched as a group, and that was the Ryan Reynolds video game-centric film Free Guy, which actually I want to say was due for release last year, and it was one of the several that got pushed back, and then it was one of a few that, strangely enough, it bowed on physical media very quickly, and I didn't really expect that.
Yeah.
And no one really expected that, because actually it was on the shelf at our library because no one realized that it was coming out, so there wasn't a wait list on it. And I saw that and I was like, holy crap, I'm checking this out. And we watched, and of course now there's a wait list on it.
What's it about?
But it's a fun movie. But basically, Ryan Reynolds plays Guy, who's a very mild-mannered, chipper, cheerful guy who's a bank teller, basically. And he lives in Free City, which you come to, which is a city where people go about their daily lives, but there are heroes who are the people who wear the sunglasses. That's what defines the heroes. They're the people that wear the glasses. And they go around doing all kinds of crap. And actually, as a bank teller, he is used to his bank getting robbed daily, several times a day. And his best friend is a security cop. And basically, their job is they just shrug and get down on the floor. And that's it. That's it. I mean, his cop, is a real bang-up cop. Let's put it that way. But he has a longing for something more. Like, he wants more out of life. And one day, he meets the girl of his dreams. And that starts a chain reaction where you find out that actually it's a video game much like Grand Theft Auto. Free City is like, what's the city in
like
that
Vice
one?
City or something like that.
Something like that. And the girl in question is a gamer who he met her avatar in game. But there are other revelations to be had as you go through the movie. And the girl is played by... of course I'm drawing a blank when I need to remember it. She did a really, really good job. I don't know why I'm forgetting that. And Taika Waititi actually has a small role as the developer of the game. I will put that in quotes. He is the film's villain, and he has fun chewing every bit of scenery he can get his hands on. Julie Comer is the main one, and she has a boyfriend who works directly for YTT, who they think he stole their operating system for his game. They sold it to him, and he buried it, but they're convinced he's actually used it to build this game. So it's a really fun game. Anyone who's into gaming or pop culture references or any of that kind of stuff will have a lot to feast on. I'm sure people like Dan will have a lot to groan about. But it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like what Ready Player One wanted to be, and kind of what the book sort of was, but a more light and chipper version. But it's a much better movie than the movie Ready Player One. But it was good times.
Well, on 10/6, I went ahead and I played Contra, the original NES Contra from the Contra Collection. I used the Konami code, which works on the Contra Collection game. And that's pretty cheap. They're in sales. You can get it for $10, which has the original Contra arcade games. It has Contra Super C from Nintendo. It has Contra 3. It has quite a bit on it. So it's a lot of fun, run and gun. And Contra is basically a game where you just run and gun and you kill aliens. On the cover, it's simply Rambo, Commando, and the alien from Aliens, essentially. And the Konami code gives you like 24 lives. I was doing pretty good, but then I kept getting distracted, so I kept dying after level 3, so I was glad I put in that Konami code. And I beat it for old time's sake. It's a fun game. It really is worth a nice playthrough. It just takes you a little bit of time to play through, and it's just an enjoyable one. Good two-player game. If you got somebody else who wants to run and gun with you, it's a fun shoot-'em-up. Just a general fun time.
Good times.
I also watched both seasons of Castle Rock. Not on that day, but I finished it that day. And Castle Rock essentially adapts a lot of Stephen King adjacent tales in his universe. And it has a lot of things that are attached to it. Like there's a visitor from another world. There's a strange cult in season 2 that takes over the bodies of people that they kill. And then there's an end attachment to gosh, what was that movie? The one, it starts with a D. It's the one where they where she captures the author and tortures him.
The Misery?
Misery. Sorry.
It doesn't start with a D.
Yeah, I was thinking Dolores Claiborne, but I'm definitely not that right.
Well, that is a Stephen King book.
It is a Stephen King book, but yeah, wrong way. Originally that was the end, but it looks like they are going to do a season 3 next year, so that'll be interesting. I enjoyed getting it because I got the first one in 4K and then the second season on Blu-ray from somebody, and I got them both together for $15, which was not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. So I was very happy with that, and if you're a Stephen King fan, I think you'll like this series. It was a really good series, not a crap ton of episodes, but well worth the hour. I had also watched an older film that I also bought off of this dude for a very low price called Deadly Bees.
Nice.
And Deadly Bees is about this, it's like a 70s film about this person who goes on this island, and they find out that there are these bees that have killed people, and a guy has been writing these terroristic notes saying, I have weaponized bees, and I'll sick them on you, and all that stuff. And you get to find out that yes, there are weaponized bees on the island, and and they've got to figure out who it is that's behind it before it's too late. It's not a bad movie. Got some decent scares. A little bit slow on the pacing department, but a lot of films, horror films at the time were. But otherwise, not a bad film. And the last one, I was busy on the 6th. The last one I watched on the 6th was a film, a horror comedy called Full Moon High. About this guy who gets bitten by a werewolf, and he ends up running amok. But unlike regular werewolves, he makes him more. He's not really so much of a deadly werewolf as more of a nuisance werewolf. He likes to nip people. He says like a little bit of a nosh. It has a lot of funny moments in it. One of them I find it's hilarious is that this person ends up turning the tables on him, and for a while in the movie he's been pretty much, just not being able to be in control and all that. And then this other person's chasing him around, and he's running around like as a werewolf trying to hide. It's in general a very fun film, very enjoyable. If you like a nice little horror comedy, you could do much worse, and I liked it better than Scary Movie, so hey.
Good times.
And I'll go ahead to 10-8 because we'll both be covering this one, and that is Return to Oz. Of course, if you want to see more coverage, not only should you watch Inside Movies Galore, but also check out Dane's Oztober on Dangerous Arts, that channel. And he does not a deep dive, but he does a kind of surface dive. We do the deep dive.
But he did a really good job with it. If you have not seen Oztober, there's short videos. I think the longest one is pushing 10 minutes, maybe. Most of them are, 3 to 6 minutes.
If you like The Wizard of Oz, you should check that out. It's a lot of cool videos and a lot of different things. But Return to Oz, from my childhood, one of my favorites. Glad it got up there. Also very fitting for the season. Dorothy returns to Oz, this time through a flood after she's getting ready to be hooked up to electroshock, only to find it all has been destroyed, and she has got to figure out who did it and how to help her friends. I mean, what did you think of Return to Oz?
It was good. I mean, I didn't have the nostalgia factor that some of the other people did. I was coming to it for the first time. But I did enjoy it. And I thought it was very interesting. It was a very different take than I'm used to when I think of, Oz and the Wizard of Oz and that kind of stuff. It was a very different sort of movie, but I'm glad I got to see it. And I realized afterwards, I borrowed a copy from him, and I realized afterwards that my dumbass had a copy, and I didn't realize it. So it's sitting there waiting to be watched whenever I can find time to watch it. So we may be revisiting it briefly in a coming discussion, but
So, let's see. And let me know if you want to jump in at any point.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get through. Yeah, we'll do those two, and then we'll.
This one and that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I got a game on sale, and I was in the middle of playing other stuff, but I stopped everything for this game because I picked up Catherine Full Body, which is a Persona adjacent game. For those of you familiar with the Persona series, and it is a game that has two basic premises. One is kind of a sim. And the other one is a puzzle game with slight horror elements. You're essentially, you are this guy who is at a crossroads in life. His girlfriend is talking about settling down and marriage, and he's not sure if he's quite ready to do that yet, and it's big conflict in his mind. And he ends up waking up the next day and finds this other girl naked next to him. Also, by the same name, Catherine. There's three Catherines. There's Catherine with the K, which is the woman he is seeing. There's Catherine with the C, which is the one that he woke up to. And then there's Catherine with the Q, which is the one they added with for the thing. And there's something up with that one in particular. There's a lot up with these Catherines. And I'm not going to spoil the story because it is really interesting. It has multiple branching paths. The decisions you make and the choices you make, both in the puzzle game and out, tend to affect the main storyline. So you can have multiple endings. I've done two endings. The one where you end up with Catherine with a K, and the one where you end up with Catherine as a C. And the first time I played it on easy mode because I was having trouble with the puzzles. But then the second time I played it through, I actually played it through without the help on the puzzles. And I actually had fun with it. It was kind of cool. It's actually a fun game, very enjoyable. The story kept me coming back, and I might take it'll have a rest, but then I'll check on, maybe I'll do the one with Catherine with the Q to try and get that ending. But that's a really weird one, and that's saying something because Catherine with a C, the ending is not exactly normal. But if you haven't seen it, you should play it. I think I showed you a little bit of that, didn't I?
I think so. I know a little bit about the game from reputation. It is supposed to be interesting. Yeah.
And you can kind of find the vanilla version pretty cheap if you have PlayStation 3. But, if you find a sale, like Steam, I think it's on Steam, it goes on sale. And it's not doesn't require that much. I mean, it's a PlayStation 3 era game. It doesn't require that much processing power. So the other one that I watched on the 13th for Inside Movies Galore was Lost Highway. This David Lynchian film.
Yeah.
By David Lynch.
Which is why it's Lynchian.
Yeah, it is
it's as
very
Lynchian
interesting.
as they come.
And I admit, I had to hear Dane's explanation of it because I didn't understand it. And now I want to go back and watch it again, but I really don't want to watch it again, so it's kind of in my vein there. It's like a lot of Lynch films, but some of them Lynch is one of those where I like watching most of his films at least once, but some I want to rewatch more than others.
Yes.
Like, I really love Blue Velvet, believe it or not. And did he do Mulholland Drive?
Yes.
Yes, and I really like that one as well. And I also liked Twin Peaks. I'm working on that slowly. But
I need to dive into that.
But there are some, like that one. Was it Dancer in the Dark he did?
No, that was Lars von Trier.
Oh, that's good. Because I don't think I ever want to watch that again.
The Lynch ones, the other one, of course, that we've covered on Movies Galore was The Elephant Man.
Oh, I'd watch that again, too.
Right.
Which is very straightforward for Lynch.
Very much so. And so is The Straight Story, which is a wonderful film. Wild at Heart was another one he did. Dune, which I still need to see.
Not a bad one.
Eraserhead, which I still need to see.
Crazy one Eraserhead was. That one was
Inland
almost
Sea,
as bad as Lost Highway when it comes to difficulty understanding.
Right. Yeah.
I've heard Firewalk with Me is hard to comprehend.
Well, also, I've never seen Twin Peaks, so it was weird.
I love Twin Peaks, so I'm looking forward to finishing the rewatch. It's just, my wife wanted to watch it with me. She's not in the mood to watch stuff right now, so it's just been a slow go.
Yeah. So, yes, and I agree. Lost Highway was one that I have been waiting to see for the longest time. I picked up a copy on a Kino Lorber sale. One reason why it's David Lynch, and all of his films are on my radar. It was on my radar because it was the last film appearance of Richard Pryor, and I still have mixed feelings about that particular appearance, but it's an interesting film overall. I really did like it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I'm glad I saw it. And I see your notes don't list the other film that we covered that night. The Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah. I forgot to write it on there.
So that was another good one. Francis Ford Coppola film from '92, where of course you got Gary Oldman as the titular Dracula. You got a woefully miscast Keanu Reeves as Jonathan Harker, a woefully miscast Winona Ryder as Mina Harker, a slightly miscast but generally effective Anthony Hopkins as Van Helsing. I'm sorry, now that I've read that that Liam Neeson wanted the role, I just think he would have been a great Van Helsing. But overall, it's a good film. You got Carrie Elwes in there as well. You got Richard E. Grant, Tom Waits as Renfield. I mean, that was dream casting there. I do think the film is very over the top. It's never been exactly my cup of tea, but it's worth a watch now and then. And it is a classic vampire film that's based, of course, on the classic vampire novel. And did you have any more you wanted to throw out on that one?
It was not my cup of tea as a film, but I know that it's a very popular film. Right. I consider it overrated. Right. But I really feel like Dane does put it into perspective. You get to hear a lot of talk about Dracula on that. I think we did a very good job hitting it on Inside Movies Galore. Right. And definitely for Lost Highway, Inside Movies Galore, Dane's explanation helped a lot with understanding that film.
Sometimes it does. Like, I mentioned, I think, in the discussion that when I saw Mulholland Drive, it was the third viewing where I got the film. And I don't know that I've reached a third viewing with most of his, so I need to try and go back. Basically, Lost Highway, I watched it and halfway slept through it. But then I came back and watched it again. What's up?
It is on here. I watched it on the 18th.
Not
on the 13th. Yeah.
Wow, you watched them quite a bit apart for ones we talked about.
Well, it's time-wise. You know how long Bram Stoker's Dracula
No, that's true. But you've got it with a bunch of other stuff on the same day. That's what's funny about it.
Yes.
But I'm going to go ahead and use that as a segue to another film that I revisited for the first time in a long time. Actually, it was only the second time I've ever seen this film. It was the Mel Brooks not-so-classic Dracula Dead and Loving It.
I need to get the Blu-ray that's just come out for that.
Where, of course, you have Leslie Nielsen as Dracula, Peter MacNicol as Renfield, Steven Weber as Harker, you got Amy Asbeck as Mina. Who are some of the... But anyway, and then, of course, Brooks himself as Van Helsing. And watching it again, it doesn't deserve quite as much hate as it gets. The film is weak by Mel Brooks standards. But overall, a weak Mel Brooks film is still a funny film. Yeah. And it does have some pretty great moments to it. And my favorite, I can't believe I'd forgotten all about it, but one of my favorite parts is the part where Lucy, where the graveyard scene, and Lucy is coming on to Harker and trying to, it's like, she's like making all these proposals to him, and he's like, Lucy, I'm British. And she's like, so are these. It's just, I don't know, I just thought that was great. And there were a couple other parts. The part where he is drenched in blood, and Van Helsing doesn't have a drop on him. And he's like, I have been to many stakings. You have to know where to stand.
I think the only thing that really disappointed me was that the fact that it's Mel Brooks' swan song as a director.
He could have gone out in a blaze of glory, and he went out with that. Yeah.
No, he's got some other upcoming projects that may or may not happen.
Right.
Like he's been teasing Spaceballs 2 forever, and recently, for some reason, History of the World Part 2 has come up in conversation.
I don't think he would direct.
But he's not going to direct either one of them. He's planning on just kind of writing. He's going to write them, is what he had said.
Right.
Which still, that's a pretty cool involvement to be writing them. And I would love to see. I'd love him to get behind the director's chair again for just one more film other than that. Exactly. So I do need to get that's the only Mel Brooks film that's available physically that I don't have, and I do need to get it. So definitely. On the 14th, I watched The Muppets Haunted Mansion on Disney Plus because why not?
Why not?
Movie Buff 1 did do a review of this one, so check out that's Kyle's channel. You could check that out to hear their thoughts on it. A lot of people really hated on this thing, and I can understand, sort of, because really Disney hasn't, other than that first Muppet movie they did, Disney has not really gotten the spirit of the Muppets after that. Frank Oz left. I kind of got kicked to the curb by Disney because they didn't want his input, and and that's the thing. They've always come like very close to grabbing something, but then never quite got it. Just like kind of like, and it still makes me wonder how they got that lightning in a bottle with that first Muppets film, because that was an incredible Muppets film.
Yeah,
that one was actually right up there with the original Muppets films. Some of the actually better than some of them. But the rest of Muppets Most Wanted, that ABC series that was very oddly serious and a weird online show. But this one, there was some stuff to it. Like if you have been to the Haunted Mansion ride, there's a lot of that reference, which is kind of cool. And there's some pretty cool cameos. I really like the Danny Trejo cameo. There's some jokes that still do fly pretty well. And I think that any child watching this will be fine. I don't think adults will get as much out of it as a child. But I do feel like adults that love the Muppets and the Muppet Show will like a lot of the shout-outs. Because there were shout-outs to those people. Like the scene where the ghosts are dancing, they turn that into one of the ballroom dancing scenes from the Muppet Show. Which, if you've seen the Muppet Show a couple episodes, right?
Probably.
But they used to do these, like, basically the sketch that they would do on a lot of the shows where they were just ballroom dancing and making one-liners. And they did that for that part. So, it was a fairly decent attempt. It was not the best, but not the worst of the worst either. I was okay. As a Halloween special, you could do worse. And if you have children, definitely it's worth a watch.
All right. Well, I think that's probably a pretty good segue into the next one I'm going to do, which is the big Disney film from the spring, which somehow, I'm still puzzled by this. I'm still puzzled. If you watch the channel, you know how much I bitched and moaned and complained about how they tried to add 2 more years to not 2 more years. God, that would be awful.
That would be like 2 more years to the Oscars.
No, 2 more years to 2020. Yes. Could you imagine? Oh, but 2 more months to 2020 with this stupid award show. And then, strangely enough, even though it was right through February, Disney went and did a major release on March 5th. And I was just puzzled by this. I was like, basically everyone is treating March as the January dumping ground, and then Disney does this huge release in March, and I hope that doesn't mean that they were dumping the film and don't believe in it. I don't really know, but the film that in question was a little film called Raya and the Last Dragon, which came out, like I said, in March. And
watch my copy.
I did get to watch my copy over some point in October, and it's a really good movie. It's not perfect, and I'll get to a couple of the flaws in a bit, but it is very entertaining. It's very, for the most part, I thought, very well paced. It's gorgeous animation, absolutely gorgeous animation, wonderful music, wonderful voice acting. It's a very solidly made production, and basically it takes place in a realm known as Kamandra, where the world was once full of dragons. And this, I can't remember what they call it offhand, but this some sort of weird miasma, we'll put it that way. Keep wanting to sneeze, and
Just don't sneeze this way.
I know. I go that way. But this weird sort of miasma basically is threatening all life. And the dragons band together, and essentially with their dying breaths, they create this crystal that one of them in particular goes, the dragon who is known as Sisu, presents this crystal to destroy all this nasty, all the miasma and everything, and save humanity. Flash forward a few centuries, and the human race has broken into bitter, squabbling factions, as we do, and you had the one central kingdom of Heart that watches over the crystal, but you also have Talon, Tail, Fang, and Wing, I think is the other one. And they're all basically just these kingdoms that are all warring and trying to win. And, one of them, well, I'm not going to get into necessarily what they may seem to represent or whatever. It's very much an Asian vibe overall, but it's a lot of blending together of cultures and whatever. But basically, Raya is the daughter of the chieftain of the Heart Kingdom, and he has decided it is past time for humanity to get back together.
Yeah.
So he invites them all in, and it turns out one of them, I think it's Fang, has a daughter who's Raya's age, and her name being Namari. And the two of them do hit it off very quickly, and Raya takes Namari into the holiest of holies of the Heart Kingdom, where the crystal is, at which time we find out that no, the other kingdoms had ulterior motives. The crystal is broken, everything goes to crap. Fast forward a few years later, and Raya is desperately seeking the pieces of the crystal to put them all back together because her father's been turned to stone and she wants to save him. And meanwhile, Namari is grown also into a warrior of her own right and is tracking her and trying to put an end to it. And etc., etc. I'll leave it at that. If you haven't already figured out, there are a lot of similarities to Avatar: The Last Airbender. I could not think about that. So I wonder if that was something that a lot of people were thinking about. But Avatar is awesome, so if you're going to copy something, you might as
I am waiting for Disney to buy Nickelodeon and their parent company.
Right, exactly. And of course, Raya does find Sisu and brings her back into the world of, and then she goes and assembles a motley crew of people looking for all these crystal shards. And the film does get a little heavy-handed with the symbolism and the whole moral of the story, if you will. But it has a lot of similarities as well with Zootopia, which was the other Disney film. It was the film that I say was the first Pixar film from Disney. This one feels very much like Zootopia. It's more aimed at an older audience, but with a lot to keep the kids entertained, you know?
Yeah.
And it has a lot of the same feel of the moral of Zootopia about getting along and inclusion and that kind of thing. But it's a really well-made film. It's very entertaining. And great voice acting. Kelly Marie Tran, Aquafina, and Gemma Chan being the three main leads.
Yeah.
And some other good folks in there too. Daniel Day Kim and some other good folks. So those good times. And the film also came with a short film, which is something Disney's been getting away from. So
That's good.
I was very happy to see that they did that again. And it came on the DVD, on the Blu-ray 4K. It's a film called Us Again, and it's about an old couple where you have this really crotchety old dude. You saw that one?
Oh yeah, that's a very good one.
Yeah, so you got this really crotchety old dude, and his equally old but much more lively wife, and she's desperately trying to get him to go outside and live and be, you know, back in society. Oh, that's not exactly what I mean, but like, he is kind of just content to while away his time. And then this magical rainfall, somehow he realizes when he's standing in the rain, he's young again. And it puts a spark in him. He goes in, and they basically, it's a dance musical. Like, it's almost all dancing and no dialogue, really. It's just a real cheerful, heartwarming little film, and it's a good way to start your viewing evening.
It is a good one. You should definitely see it. We won't spoil it for you, but you should definitely check it out. I will see Raya eventually. Let's see here. So Aquafina got like the lead for best voice actress so far?
No, she's I think she's 4 or 5 on my list. She was doing really well, but the Mitchells versus the Machines did really well too.
I know you're getting that later.
But Kelly Marie Tran and Gemma Chan were both phenomenal in their roles. I gave them good props. And Aquafina was good in her role. I mean, the voice acting overall in Raya is very solid. It's very solid. Yeah.
So, a couple more video games. The Final Fantasy Pixel Perfect remasters came out. They put it on sale to you can get 1 through 6 because they're redoing 1 through 6. 1 through 4 have been released now, and they're going to be releasing 5 soon, and then 6 is going to be the roundup, the ender. That's the one I'm most curious about pixel-wise because the first 3 games were kind of released more in a Final like an SNES graphical style.
Right.
And 4 and 5, to my knowledge, they don't look all that different graphically than they did before. So I really got to wonder how they're going to do 6, because 6 is very different looking graphically. But we'll find out as it comes. I actually did play through and beat the very first Final Fantasy. It is my favorite Final Fantasy game. I could say that because it's the one I have beaten the most. I have beaten this game a lot because it's a very simple game. It's a very fun game. It even inspired me to write up a D&D campaign that we're working on right now. And, we're slowly working through it. It's kind of fun. I at first decided to do more of a one-on-one, and then I decided, okay, let's just do an interpretation, and that I think is flowing pretty well right now. very slowly in the story. And if they were playing it with the one-on-one, they'd have already been like way farther than they are now. But it's kind of works this way. But it was very fun. The Pixel Perfect remaster is probably my favorite version I have played. I have not played the PSP version of Final Fantasy 1, but I played a lot of the other releases, and this one is probably my favorite out of all of them. Very well done. They got rid of a lot of bugs, and it plays perfectly. I love the mini-maps. I'm working on the third game right now, because it's the only game... If I beat Final Fantasy 3, I will have beaten Final Fantasy 1 through 10. Which, that's a huge accomplishment. I'm working to beat all of them.
Right.
And since 2 of them are online only, I'm not sure. I also finished playing another walking sim basically game that was a PT-inspired horror game called Evil Inside. I used the month as an excuse to try and tackle a lot of these short horror games. Well, these indie horror games. And essentially, you get this note from your mother, which is strange because your mother is dead. So you're going to investigate this. And you get trapped in this recurring hallway, and you gotta solve little different puzzles to make it go. And as you're going through the hallway, you are haunted by various creepy things. I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but it does have an interesting twist ending. It's one of those games you really only play maybe once. Maybe it might be like time goes by, and you're like, let's experience that horror again, or you show somebody off, maybe. But otherwise, it's not got a lot of replay value. But it's reasonably okay, and it has some definite jump scares that do lend it to some fun.
Good times.
Now, on the 16th, you and I shared this one.
Yes.
Not on the 16th, but I know that you watched it.
Yes.
And when it came out on streaming, because I don't go to theaters in the year of COVID, I got enough COVID exposure in the hospitals. But I watched the film Halloween Kills. This is for those of you who watched the other Halloween film that came out in 2019?
18, I believe.
And we went to theaters to see that. And it was supposed to come out in 2020, I believe, but got delayed for reasons. And this one kind of goes on like basically these films treat the first Halloween as canon and then kind of go off of that. And this one kind of takes a very interesting, much more high action approach to Halloween. A lot higher kill count than I'm used to seeing from Michael Myers. There's a scene with these firemen that almost looks like it's out of a John Wick movie. But still, it has a lot of cool stuff. One of the things I thought was ridiculous was this whole thing is like, don't watch it because it shows that Halloween is an anti-LGBTQ because he kills a gay couple.
Okay.
So what was he supposed to just like? Oh, you're gay. Okay, yeah, I support that. Yeah, let's you guys can stay in my house. You're good.
It's like reverse discrimination.
Yeah, so I was like, I just found that stupid. But people are looking for ways to be offended in this. I think that if you really want to be offended by Halloween Kills, you could find better things to be offended at.
And I don't know. I thought Big John and Little John were
they're great. They were great characters. I love the characters. I mean, shoot, he killed a child in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not offended by that. He obviously hates children and straight people and women and men. And anybody else that gets in his way. Really?
I kill anything that moves!
But you saw that one as well, right?
Yes.
What did you think of it?
Well, I still think it has a stupid title.
Well, hey, that's a holiday that kills.
But, I thought as a follow-up to Halloween 2018, it did a good job. It was kind of an interesting idea of basically the entire film takes place over a few hours.
Yeah.
And it takes place immediately after the last film. So it's like the two films together, it barely adds to the end of the story time-wise. but it definitely does, like you said, as far as kill count and all that stuff. I thought it was pretty well done. It's not my favorite film. It's not my favorite film of the year, but I enjoyed it enough. I don't think I missed too much not seeing this one in theaters. Although I am glad I saw the other one. I can say I went to one of them.
Oh, the last one was much better.
Oh, it was an excellent film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the second one in a trilogy,
Right.
so I'm sure that the third one's probably going to, maybe it'll be better than that.
Hopefully.
Well,
and I do have to mention, because I can't remember the first film right away, and because it took place over several days, this might have been something that I just didn't notice because, But this one, since all the action takes place over a few hours, these things are more noticeable.
Yeah.
I find it hilarious that Judy Greer's character is wearing a Christmas sweater on Halloween. I don't know. I just thought that was great.
Now, on the 17th, I did do a major accomplishment, which I beat Resident Evil 8.
Nice.
Now, I've been playing on that one for a while, and then stopped for Catherine. And what's funny is that it was a gift that my cousin gave me for my birthday. But he gave me a code for the Xbox, which I can't do. I cannot stream it up to the upstairs one like I can the PlayStation. Right. So I'm like, I can only do it when I'm down here. And it was one of those games where I didn't really want to come back to it as much, but once I got into it again, whenever I would play it, I was having a time of my life. It's just weird. I don't know if you ever had something like that, like a show, you're dragging your feet, like, I don't know if I want. But then when you're finally watching it again, you're like, oh yeah, I'm glad I'm watching this. Right. And it's kind of like that. I really did like it. It kind of is a good place to take the story that they started, the Ethan Winter story they started in 7. Essentially, you're just having dinner, and then your child is kidnapped. Other things happen, but I'm not spoiling it because I don't want you to have the shock. And you've got to go and get your baby back, essentially. And you're in this village, and there are multiple villains. Lady Dimitrescu is the one everybody knows, but she's only... And this is one technically is a spoiler, but I don't care. People should know this before they get in the game. She is not the main villain. She is one of multiple boss villains. Matter of fact, you beat her relatively quickly. Cat. As you go in. But she is a very memorable one. I mean, giant vampire lady that everybody wants to step on their head. I don't know why.
Okay.
It's a weird thing. People were really obsessed with that.
Everyone's got their own kick.
It is weird. Well.
All right. Yep, so, speaking of people getting their own kicks and video games and all that kind of stuff, another film that I saw that I would probably rate pretty close to Halloween Kills, actually, and I think I'd probably get a lot of hate mail for saying that, is the recent remake. Well, naturally, I watched Raya and the Last Dragon, so what am I going to watch next? Well, obviously, the next film to watch is going to be Mortal Kombat. I mean, so I'm talking, of course, Mortal Kombat 2021, not the 96 version. So, I forget, have you seen this one yet?
No, okay. Dustin was talking it up as one of the best movies.
Okay, so Mortal Kombat has been divisive since it came out, to put it mildly. The first film was not great, but it was what you would expect. You would expect it's the tournament. The characters show up, they fight, they're working their way through a tournament. Ultimately, they defeat Shang Tsung. Yay, end of movie. The second movie, less said about it, the better. This one was an attempt to come back and retool the franchise and restart it and whatever. And about this time, another thing I also saw was a couple of episodes of, I think it's called The Legend of Scorpion or something. It's an animated one that's out right now. Yeah. And they've done something lately where they've built up all this mythology about Scorpion and Sub-Zero and their rivalry between... I mean, it's been there from the start, but like lately they've really dug in. And this film really dug into that. And basically, the whole premise, the whole setup revolves around a centuries-old conflict where Sub-Zero, well, at the time he went by a different name, murdered the entire family of the man who would become Scorpion, except for he missed the baby. And Lord Raiden, of course, took the baby and, So this is one of the divisive elements of the film. It centers on a character who is new to the franchise, who's never been in any of the games, Cole. And he is basically the distant... I don't care if I spoil it for you, I'm sorry, but he has a relationship to Scorpion. I mean, we'll put it that way. It's not the biggest spoiler in the world, because you kind of figure it out, but...
I didn't know it.
Yeah, but anyway, in this version, people who are invited to the tournament have like this little tattoo on them, and they can earn the tattoo by killing someone who has the tattoo. So that's how Kano came into the match. Sonya does not have the tattoo, but she's been researching it with her friend Jax, her army buddy Jax, who does have the tattoo. She has captured Kano. He goes after Cole. He gets his arms ripped off. All
you
that.
Do it,
you got to do that. The guy who plays Sub-Zero does a good job, especially before he becomes Sub-Zero. He actually has a sense of humor. Most of the characters are decently portrayed. There's some of the ones you would expect. Shang Tsung, of course. Melina, Goro makes an appearance. A lot of the ones you would expect. But some of the ones you would expect don't even show up. The film ends with an obvious, there will be a part 2. And guess who's going to be in it? Johnny Cage. But Cage himself does not show up in the movie. And my favorite character, Kitana, does not show up at all. But the way they structure the story, it wouldn't make sense for her to show up, because this is the really weird part. They never get to Outworld in the film. They don't get to the tournament in the film because Shang Tsung is trying to kill off all Earth's champions. He's being the little bitch he is, trying to get rid of the competition before the tournament. So there are elements of the film that would really piss off purists about the game. But if you come at it from the standpoint of, well, they wanted to take these characters and tell a story, they did okay. And it's worth noting that the guy who becomes Scorpion, the Scorpion, is played by Hiroyuki Sanada, who is a wonderful actor, and I actually do have him on my cameo list so far. But it's they also, I'm not going to give too much more away because I don't want to spoil everything. Some of the central conflicts and characters are resolved in this film. So you will not get some of the ones in the second film that you would expect to see. So I don't know. I don't know if the film was popular enough to where it will get a second one, and it may actually suck because they don't have the budget to do it right. But we'll see.
We'll see. I haven't watched it. I haven't watched the second Mortal Kombat movie either.
You didn't miss much.
But I got that steelbook that had both of them on it. I still need to get the other movie.
That was a cool looking steelbook.
It is a cool looking steelbook. So on the 18th, where I watched Bram Stoker's Dracula, I really only did 3 things that day. One of them is I finished a video game. That was probably at the end of the night there, which was Among the Sleep. I actually helped kickstart this game, believe it or not. And my name, I noticed like, oh, my name's in the credits. And I was like, oh yeah, because I did, because I thought it was such a cool concept. It was years ago. About this, basically, a horror from the eyes of a toddler. and you're playing a toddler, which is a really kind of unique thing because it is a lot of things can look very horrific to the eyes of a toddler, and it has this this story that starts off just maybe kind of gives you surface creepiness, but later on you have real peril that you're in. To the point, like, there's this one part towards the end where if you knock over these bottles, this creature comes out and it kills you pretty much outright. So you got to be careful not to knock over the bottles, or you have to find a place to hide.
Well, can't I have a little peril?
It's a really good game. The graphics are kind of dated, but you can get it on modern hardware really cheaply. It's not a long game, but darned if it isn't fun. I probably will play it over again one day. It has a great it has a great feel to it when it comes to horror. Definitely had me tense a lot of the time. So I would not mind I wouldn't mind playing it again. It's a lot more involved than a walking sim like the others that I was talking about. There's a little bit more to it than one of the other ones that I'm going to talk about towards the end of my list. But definitely in between. The one movie other than Dracula I watched was The Funhouse Massacre, which is one that you would have trouble with. Essentially, there's this town that has a bunch of really nasty killers. And they're all interned in this asylum. So they run this festival that's dedicated to the killers. Well, the killers end up breaking out of the asylum, and there's a Harley Quinn type character, so you might like her. And they end up basically killing off the actors and end up betraying themselves in the haunt. And killing lots of people in there. A lot of heavy body count, a lot of gore. It's actually a pretty fun movie. It's not the best. I want to say I got this from Dane. But I wanted to watch it just to make sure that it was good. It was a used one. And I thought it really did good.
Good deal.
So this is one that's both of us. Matter of fact, I think I might hit all. How many of these did you cover the second season?
I just did the first season.
So we'll cover first season, and then I'll hit the others after that real quick, and then we'll wrap that up. On the 20th and the 22nd, I hit Psycho-Pass, Psycho-Pass 2, and Psycho-Pass the movie, because we were doing Psycho-Pass as the anime anticlimax for the end of October, which was... now, I didn't hit them all at the same time.
I was going to say.
But I finished Psycho-Pass Season 1 on the 22nd, and I finished the second season in the movie on the 22nd. And Psycho-Pass was a really interesting anime. I like to make sure I keep the explanations short because I don't want spoilers and time.
And we spent a good while discussing the show. Definitely tune into that discussion. We covered it pretty well.
Yes, so, we even touched on the movie in the second season. But it's a simple thing. It's a world where everything is micromanaged by this kind of omni-brain
Sybil.
Yeah, Sybil. The Sybil system. Where if you go over a certain stress level, you're deemed a criminal, and you're thrown into therapy. And if you can't recover, you're locked away for life. Unless you are one of these hunters that goes along and works with the police in order to take the brunt of the psychosis, essentially, of all the trauma, in order to spare the officers.
Well, the term Psycho-Pass is essentially the crime coefficient. It's like if you get above a certain level with your Psycho-Pass, you're considered to be in need of adjustment therapy, which basically is BS, as we come to find out that you're pretty much boned at that point.
Well, we're not going to spoil that twist for you. If you want it spoiled, you can watch our in-depth, but I would say watch it first and then listen. Unless you don't care about spoilers.
Yes, and it just watch it generally. It's a good show.
It is a good one.
It is a good one. I need to watch the second season.
And there's a third season and like another movie. And all that. The second season was... A lot of people pan it because it's not,
It's a different writer.
But it's not that bad. I actually really enjoyed it. Shorter, but it has very good plot. Very intense. And the movie is just more of a kind of it kind of takes place in between, and it brings back some of the character in between the first and second season, and brings back some of the characters that that you've seen in the other one. It's a fun romp. It's definitely a good one-off story. It's not a necessity, but it's like a lot of anime movies. It's just like, here's a story from the world of psychopaths. And it's a fun one. There you go.
All right. So, well, how better to follow up Mortal Kombat than to go back to the Disney stable with their new Disney Pixar film, Luca. Which actually I was quite amused when I sandwiched Mortal Kombat between those two films. It seems appropriate. But, so Luca basically is a very colorful and very lighthearted, lighthearted, but it has drama, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a good upbeat film that takes place on the Italian Riviera. And it centers around a young boy named Luca, who is actually a quote sea monster.
Yep.
It's one of those ones where you have this society of creatures living just under the surface. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like a lull in the sea.
I was thinking that myself.
Except that the people on land are much more afraid of these so-called sea monsters. And they do have a more, you could say, monstrous look. Like in A Lull in the Sea, they basically look like humans. There's no real difference. One of the interesting touches that they have in the film that is kind of, I'm not sure it's the most realistic, but it's kind of amusing, is that, well, if you've seen Ranma 1/2, you know the dangers that the characters face of coming into contact with water. And it's the same deal here. Like, literally a droplet of water and the skin changes. Like, it's instantaneous. Yep. So it's kind of an interesting, it does lead to some really cool visuals in the film. But it's basically, you have this kid who is kind of like the good kid, you know, he doesn't do anything too crazy, but he kind of yearns to visit the surface. There's also shades of Little Mermaid in this one as well. He collects stuff. He wants to, you know, he meets this kid, Alberto, who is also, like him, a sea monster that, but he lives on his own, and he is a hardcore collector. And he convinces Luca to come to the surface, and they spend time on this island, but eventually they decide to go into town because they have this crazy idea that Vespa is the ticket to freedom, and they want to get their own Vespa and be free. And then when they get there, they meet a crazy, well, half-crazed, not really, but the town thinks of her that way, this little tomboy named Julia, who is prepping for the big race that they have every year. And there's also this douchebag. What was his name? Was he...
douchebag.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Who is way too old to still be doing the race, but he still does it all the time, every year. He always gives her a hard time. And so these two become friends with her and her father, and they have to hide what they really are. And then, of course, you know, things happen and whatever, and this, that, and the other. It's not the deepest or most profound film Pixar has ever made. Not remotely. But it's fun. Mm-hmm. It's one of their most purely fun films that they've done. And in a way, it's kind of almost the opposite of Soul, in that, you know, it was not nearly as introspective. It's much more aimed at a youthful audience versus Soul, I thought, was more of an adult audience. But it still is a good family film that everyone can enjoy, and I enjoyed it. I did.
So, in the inevitable matchup, because you know Disney is going to likely win the Best Animated Feature, via Pixar or there. I mean, there's an off chance, but 9 times out of 10, it's almost always Disney.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, probably.
So, you know, Luca and Raya are going to be up against each other.
Probably.
And so, which one do you think out of those two will come out on top? I've only seen one of the two. I like Luca a lot, but
If it's the two, it's probably going to be Raya, but Disney has a new one coming out, Encanto, that I really think has a good shot at kind of blowing both of them away.
And then again, yeah, they probably will go again to March this year, of next year.
I hope not.
So,
they better not. That'd be freaking stupid.
So it's hard to say. But we'll be covering more animation in a bit.
Yep.
On the 24th, I watched a film that I got from Dave called Trailer Park Shark. And it's exactly as it sounds. It's about a trailer park in Louisiana that gets flooded, and there's a shark that becomes a mutant and electric. And so it becomes a mutant electric shark, and you gotta take it out. And it's kind of ridiculous. It's a little bit boring, but not too boring. So it's one of those that I enjoy having for the absurdity of it. Will I watch it again? Maybe. Oddly enough, Kim watched it with me, and I was surprised. But she thought it was stupid, too. Which it was. But that's all I really need to say about that. I'm not going to go in depth with these. But I did think it was very interesting. And if you like movies I'm sorry, you'll know if you like it by the fact if you hear Trailer Park Shark and go, you'll probably like it at least this much. Alright, we'll cover that. I'll come back to that one and then we can switch off after that.
Okay.
So on the 25th, I watched Killdozer. You know, it's funny, I've never seen Maximum Overdrive, but I've seen Trucks. And I've seen Killdozer, and Killdozer might as well be freaking Maximum Overdrive and Trucks. It's just the aliens possess a bulldozer, and the bulldozer is killing everybody. It's reasonably decent. It has a good pacing to it. I'm glad to have it. I've always wanted to have Killdozer in my collection, and Dane happened to be selling it for a fairly cheap price, and I went ahead and I got it. And I enjoyed Killdozer overall. Nice. It was a fun one to watch. I mean, for any type of killer machine I'm sorry, it's a bulldozer. It moves very slowly. And yes, they're kind of trapped on an island, but you can avoid a bulldozer pretty easy. It's almost like that scene in Deadpool where the guy gets run over by the Zamboni. It's sort of like, I was like, okay, well, you know.
Or like the scene in Frankenhooker with the lawnmower.
Yeah. But speaking of Frankens, we also watched Frankenstein for the upcoming, the original 1931 film, which has I always have been of two views of this, and please watch the Inside Movies Galore discussion for better analysis, but I've always been of two views. One, yes, it's a classic, and it has influenced films for decades. Shoot, we're coming on a century past
there,
yeah. But the other thing is, it brutalizes the freaking book. Because it kind of ruins Frankenstein as a character, the character that he was originally meant to be, and the Frankenstein monster. Because nobody thinks of the scientist when you hear Frankenstein, they think of the monster. And they always think of the monster as that silent, that, instead of what the monster was. The Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, I thought did a better coverage of the book, which, De Niro. And if you see the play that they did with Benedict Cumberbatch, for instance, that one also was really good. And your take on Frankenstein?
Well, yes, it's pronounced Frankenstein. We talked at length in the Movies Galore group. It's one that as I said during the discussion, the film always leaves me wanting more. Like, I feel a little almost cheated because I feel like, wait, that's it? But I mean, that said, it still is, like he said, a classic film. It was a pivotal moment in cinema, and so it's worth watching, if only to see what came after, and James Whale did a decent job with the film, and well, it pretty much kick-started Boris Karloff's career, if nothing else. That's a big thing right there. So, yeah.
So how many do you have left?
I have 3 left, but I know you have one of them on your list.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we watched one of them together on Halloween night, matter of fact. But if you watched any of the Inside Movies Galore ones for next week, for this week, I did not watch any of those in October. I'm at the end of that.
Right.
There was a film on the 26th that I know you would love called Gravy.
Ooh, good brown gravy.
Matter of fact, I'll hit this one on the 27th, then we'll move to you for one, and we'll just do it that way.
Sure.
And then we'll end on the last one together. Okay. But Gravy is a film, another one I got from Dane, pretty cheap. It's about this people that take over this restaurant, and they do so every year for Halloween. They decide that they capture these people at the restaurant, torture them, and eat them.
Lovely.
And make them play these kind of Saw-type games. And it's kind of... But unlike the way it sounds, it's also a horror comedy, but I feel like it has a hard time finding its tone entirely.
Yeah.
It's good. I enjoyed it. I would watch it again, but I feel like... And the ending kind of made it to where I think, okay, I can watch this again. But it is definitely a acquired taste.
In a manner of speaking.
Yes. So you'll have to judge for yourself if you like Gravy. But I did not get on the Gravy train. But I did find Gravy okay.
Okay.
Now, one I got from Dave was a film called In Memory Of, which is a pretty cool one. It was signed by the director, which is also pretty cool.
Nice.
I did like this one. It was a film that did go around amnesia. I'm not going to spoil this. It had some horror elements, but a lot more of mystery elements to it. It's one of those that you really should watch, so I'm not going to spoil it for you. Mm-hmm. It's one I think that you could do pretty well, which is funny because it came highly recommended from Dave, who usually that's a harder sell, but I think that's there. On the other hand, a movie called Muckman I think would be up all our alleyways because it's about this group of people who are hunting the Muckman, which is kind of like this faked monster, and it's a found footage type film. Mm-hmm. And but it turns out that the monster might be more real than you would think.
So is it a mockumentary?
In a way, and it's also plays itself more as a kind of almost as a comedy. Almost. Not quite. But I thought I wasn't going to like it. Mm-hmm. But turned out I liked it a heck of a lot more than I thought I would. I really enjoyed it. Cool. But both In Memory Of and Muckman were very good films.
Good deal. All right. So another one that was a very good film that actually has a lot in common with Halloween Kills in some ways. And actually, I watched both of them Halloween week. I didn't get to do a lot of horror viewing for this month, but I got a little bit in. But this was one that, much like Halloween Kills, it is a sequel that came out a little bit later than the original, but was delayed by COVID. And just like that one, I went and saw the original in theaters and did not do the same for the sequel. And this one, I really kind of wish I could have seen the sequel in theaters, but I couldn't. It just wasn't going to happen. And that was John Krasinski's follow-up to his little film, A Quiet Place. Oh. And this one is called A Quiet Place Part 2. appropriately enough. And much like Halloween Kills, this one picks up basically on the tail end of the first film and just moves it forward. And but it does have some flashback scenes. You do have scenes back to the first day where the creatures first rear their ugly heads, which allows Krasinski himself a chance to return to the film because, well, if you saw the first film, you know, and if you haven't seen the first one, minor spoiler for the...
Yeah, don't go too in-depth with the plot there, because I don't want spoilers.
Right. Oh, so you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, no play-by-play on that one.
Well, no play-by-play, but basically you're following the remainders of this family. You got Emily Blunt as the mother, Millicent Simmons as the deaf daughter, and Noah Jupe as the son, and there's also the little baby. And the flashback introduces a friend of the family who's played by Cillian Murphy. And Murphy ends up becoming a part of the action in the second film. I will kind of leave it at that. If you've seen A Quiet Place, you know pretty much what to expect, except for the idea that humans are... This is an idea you often see in these kind of films, survivor films, that humans can be even more dangerous sometimes than the creatures out there.
Of course.
But of course, the original A Quiet Place, the basic premise was you had these creatures that are killing machines that are very sound sensitive. Very sound sensitive. Yeah. And last year, I raved and raved and raved and raved about how Sound of Metal was a good example, a great example of the film that the Sound Awards were made for. I still think A Quiet Place got gypped that it didn't get, more sound.
It's horror.
Exactly. Yeah. And this one, I do think the sound production is phenomenal. So if you're into that kind of thing, those two films you should watch just if only for that. But yeah.
Is it as good as the first one?
I wouldn't say as good necessarily, but it's close. It's not like a huge step down. It was less of a step down, I thought, than Halloween Kills was.
Let's see. So I'll do that. Actually, yeah. So you've got two left, right?
I have the one that we both have, and then one more.
Okay, so I'll do this one. Then you do that one, then I'll do this one, and then you can go ahead and talk about that last one that we watched on the 31st together. So, on the 28th, I watched a Giallo film. I had a Giallo 2-pack I got from Dave.
Oh, boy.
And the first one I watched. Second one you're not going to hear until next month, which is The Night Evelyn Came Out of Her Grave. Essentially, you've got this person who's obsessed with the death of a former lover, and he ends up getting these women and taking them to these sex dungeons, 50 Shades style, except he beats them to death. And there's a side story going on as well, and this ghost that of the former lover or his mental illness talking to him about it. It was a hard one for me to follow because it was Italian with subtitles, and it was hard for me to pay 100% attention to it. Usually, if it's something like that, I have to have a full 100% attention to deal with the subtitles and all of that. Especially if the film is slow, it's harder. And this one, kind of like most Giallo films, is very slow, pacing-wise. So I had a harder time keeping up with it. I'm not sure whether I liked it or not. Maybe I'll try it again later on when I'm in a better mood. I like the other one on that collection better, but I'll talk about that one again next month. It's still, it was okay. It was decent enough. The story was okay. It had something that it could be compelling enough that I might try and watch it again. The ending was pretty good, but otherwise, I'm not sure I would spend a lot of money on it. I didn't really, because it was a package. It was a care package that Dave sent as a gift. So only so much.
Right. All right. Oh, my turn.
Yep.
All right, my next one, strangely enough, was from a director who apparently did an episode of Psycho-Pass, Kyohei Ishiguro. And this is a film that is actually streaming on Netflix, but it's a 2021 anime film called Saru no Yo ni Kotoba ga Wakaigaru, or it's also known as Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, which is the translation of one of the haiku poems that the main character Cherry writes. Basically, the film centers on two teens. Cherry is a boy who works in the best way I can describe it is it's like a daycare for old people in a shopping mall in some random suburban place in Japan.
Also, be careful of spoilers. I want to see this one for myself as well.
I'll keep this one as spoiler-free as I can. And then you have the girl Smile. That's her online name. She's one of those, I guess influencers. Like she has her online channel that she's always filming videos, and she always goes to the mall to film these videos. But it's kind of an ironic name because she always wears a surgical mask because she has enormous buck teeth and she's really self-conscious about them. And as the film starts, she has just gotten braces, which makes her even more self-conscious. So she's always seeking cuteness and looking for and celebrating cuteness on her channel and everything. And she's very popular. She has a lot of followers. And he always wears headphones. He writes haiku. He wears headphones at one point he says so people won't talk to him. So you have basically both of them are in some way shut off from the world, but they're seeking connection. And one of his charges is an old man named Mr. Fujiyama, who is voiced by Koichi Yamadera, which I love. He is a wonderful fixture of anime. And Smile is voiced by Hana Sukisaki. Cherry is voiced by Somoguro Ichikawa the 8th. But you also have Kikuko Inoue in there. You got Megumi Han, Aya Hizukawa, Maya Sakamoto. You got a pretty high wattage cast. Actually, Cherry is one of the only members of the cast who's not like a big name seiyuu. And the film has wonderful music. It has 2 original songs. Mr. Fujiyama is seeking a record that is called Yamazakura, and that becomes a big plot point as the film goes on. Yamazakura, when you finally hear it, it's a great song. I loved it, absolutely loved it. And there's another song called Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop that plays over the end credits. So this one dominates my original song category right now. It's a very, 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 very bright and colorful film. The animation style is a little rough. It's not the neatest and tidiest anime, but it's very colorful. It's very kind of an 80s vibe, although part of that's the shopping mall.
So how do you think it would do in a race against Luca and Raya?
I don't think it has a snowball's chance in hell of getting nominated, but that's because the Academy doesn't.
Yeah, well, I mean,
if they had a proper appreciation
in a fair race, like in our Versus Awards, if we did an animated feature,
I would say in our Versus Awards it will do well, except that I was kind of surprised at how poorly A Whisker Away did.
Soul was a better film than A Whisker Away.
Yes, but I was surprised by how poorly that film did overall. Like, even Roger dismissed it and said it wasn't that important. And I don't know who else got around to seeing it. If enough people see the film, that's the thing. The fact that it's on Netflix, well, that didn't help A Whisker Away. Yeah. But I think it should do really well. But I wouldn't put it on the same, like, if I'm being honest, it is probably the 4th ranked animated feature I've seen out of 4.
Okay.
But it's still a really good film. And it's very, in the end, again, I won't get in spoiler territory, but it's a very uplifting film. And it's very, so.
Yeah, we still have a long way to go before it gets to that time.
Right.
So on the 29th,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I have the 30th there, because I didn't watch anything on the 30th. But Layers of Fear 2, I finally got around to beating it. We actually played Layers of Fear together as a group. Actually, you, me, Sarah, Nick, and I can't think of, and Kim. That was the one where they were in this haunted mansion, and it was kind of a haunted house simulator almost, and they had the painting. And I remember that because Sarah was playing it, and she was like, "Ooh, what's that noise? Let's go check it out." This one takes place on a haunted ocean liner, and has a lot of movie catalog. I mean, basically, there's a lot of movie references. A lot of it's a little bit harder to get into than the original. The scares are a little bit less intense. But there's also a little bit more player involvement. There are a lot of stages that you could die in. If you do not move your ass at the right point, you will get killed. And it is a creepy way to, it is a creepy and a jump scare moment to kill you. But it wasn't a bad film. I mean, game. But it's not one that I'm in a hurry to play again. It has, unlike a lot of these walking sim games, this one has replayability. It's just I don't know if I want to. It's one I might take a guide to later on and go back to, because there are different things. There's different angles. I don't think there's a different ending necessarily, but there's different ways you can play it. So I would be curious. It's a good game, good enough, but I wouldn't buy it full price. I would find it cheap. I'd say $10 or less. Anything like $10 or less, I would get it. No more.
Very good.
All right. Well, we have one final one, and we both watched together at the same time. On the 31st.
Yep. That was It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Nobody knows that one.
No, never heard of that one before in my life. I got a rock. Of course, that's the classic Halloween Charlie Brown, where Linus goes out in the pumpkin patch to meet the Great Pumpkin, and for once, the kids all bully Linus instead of Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Although the parents bully Charlie Brown because they all give him rocks.
So what kind of terrible people do that?
I mean, seriously, it's like it'd be one thing if it happened once, but every time, I got 5 pieces of candy. I got 5 pieces of candy. I got a rock.
I mean, I look at this one and the Christmas one as the 2 definitive Peanut specials.
Right.
The Thanksgiving one, kind of, but not really. But I tell you, these 2 are the ones that always stick up in my mind. And the Christmas one is the original one. I think that the Halloween one was the second one they did.
I think so.
And they are really good. I mean, to me, they have a lot of nostalgia value. I've been trying for a long time to try and get them up on Inside Movies Galore, but nobody wants to vote for them. It's just
partly also it's so short.
I know, but I would think that would get your vote, because I don't have to spend much time this week. It just
it always catches me off guard. This time around, it caught me off guard. It was like he spends a whole night we're going to watch Great Pumpkin. We're going to watch Great Pumpkin. We're going to watch it, and then we watch it. And it's like, holy crap, it's over.
Yeah, it's very short. So, I mean, that's the thing. I'm putting up, of course, actually, my wife put up the Christmas one. So I'm hoping that we get to it. But it's hard to say. There's a lot of good stuff for that week. But in any case, that's it. That's what we went over.
Yeah.
So we have that lineup. You've seen the format that we've been hitting, and we'll try it again next month. See how we do.
I've already racked up a few things. That's,
Oh yeah, I've got my. I've already got my list started for. That's our Inside Movies Galore.
I was going to say, how do you
I've already got my list started for this.
Good times.
Which a lot of this is. I mean, I can tell you right now, there's 1, 2, 3 movies right there for Inside Movies Galore.
Right.
So
Yep.
we're gonna have some fun. Well, I hope you like this. Of course, let us know in the comments. What did you see in October that was fun for you? Anything particularly spooky? Ooh. But let us know in the comments down below. And of course, we'll try and see you on the next one. Bye.